In this little video we're going to paint an autumn scene and some birch trees and use some tape to mask off the areas we need to keep white for our tree trunks. Now to make your trees using masking tape, just put off some masking tape or painter's tape or whatever you have, and then just kind of tear it. We don't want a straight edge, so we're tearing off the straight edge, and these are going to be birch trees when they're done. So I just want just a kind of an organic edge. I don't want that straight edge that I have on the tape, so I'm going to tear it at both sides. And this is going to be my trunk. Now obviously as it goes up along, I want my trunk to either stay the same or get a little bit narrower as I go up along the tree. So I'll have something like this for one. So I'm going to do 3. So I'm going to have one like that maybe, and just when I'm happy with the positioning of it, I'll just put it down like that. So again, you can use the bits that you've pulled off and just make it the way you want your tree to be. So I could have this one with 2, with a limb coming out of the side of it, secondary kind of limb like that. So that's how I would go along, and I will put my 3 trees on my page. So I'll do that now and come back. So now this is what I've ended up with. So I have 3 trees, 2 singles and 1 double. But as I said, you can make it your own. You can have as many or as little as you like. So now this enables me to go in and to use my my paint and not to have to worry about about my tree trunk staying nice and white, because the silver birches are lighter in colour, the trunk, so I want to preserve the white of the paper to have that effect with them. So now I'm just going to wet my page, and I'm going to put on my clean water. So I'm working wet into wet, and I'm going to give this little scene an autumnal kind of feel. So I'm wetting my paper all over, and I'm just getting it nicely covered with the clean water. I'm going to drop my washes into that. Now if you want a bit of sky, you could start with a little bit of blue, and the blue we all had was the ultramarine blue, so you could start with that if you wanted to. Just give it a little bit of sky. As we know, the watercolour will dry lighter, so you can play around with it. Now if you want to lift out some clouds like we did in lessons before, go ahead and do that with your tissue. So now I'm going to drop in some autumn kind of colours. So some of my yellow ochre. Again, these colours will dry lighter, so don't be afraid of them. And the page is wet, so it's going to take them and diffuse them nicely and make them nice and soft. So I'm only tapping them in, and this will give me a lovely soft background. So I'm going to use some of my my warm yellows, I think. So the New Gamboge is a lovely, it's kind of similar, but I'll put some red over that now and it'll turn orangey. So really what I'm doing is I'm letting the colours mix on the page to a certain extent. So I'm going to add some red to that now, and see, that will add some orange for me. And I'm not forgetting the greens, because there will be greens still there. So I'm making up a little bit of a lemony green, or a yellow green. Now just dropping in a little bit of that in places, because as I said, there'll still be some green around. Now I'm going to add some of my burnt sienna, lovely reddy brown. So really I'm only playing with my colours, and as I said, I'm letting them mix on the page themselves. So I'm going back in for my warm yellow again. And some more of that green that I've mixed. And that's my background in. So now I'm going to let that dry, and my next step will be to just add a little bit more here in front. Now that our foreground has dried, I have started to put in some little distant trees in the background, and I'm mixing up a very, very watery mix of yellow ochre with the tiniest little touch of burnt sienna. Now this is a very, very watery mix, and I'm using a small brush to put them in. So these will just fade into the background, so they're just barely visible. But it's to give the impression that there is some kind of forestry landscape back here. They're very subtle, and you'll hardly see them once they dry into the background. So with that done, it's now time to take off my tape. So you need to be really careful doing this, because you don't want to damage the paper underneath. Very gently. So if I pull it against itself and from the side, it helps it to come off without doing any damage. If the tape is very sticky, before you put it on, you could also just rub it on your clothes to take that real sticky quality out of it before you put it on your page, and this will help to stop it sticking really solidly to the paper as well. Another trick for getting it off is to heat it maybe with a hairdryer. That also loosens the glue and helps to take it off. But generally, if you just pull it along at an angle, it tends to come off without doing any damage. The last one now, let's hope that it's all good. So now that's my tape off, and as you can see, we have preserved the white of the paper, and that allows us to work now on our tree trunks. From the photographs at the beginning of the video, we saw that the tree trunks were light in colour and that they have scarring on them. Now the silver birch tend to be kind of whitey or grey with kind of dark colorations on them. So I'm going to have a light and a dark side to the trees, so I'm going to work wet into wet. So I'm going to wet my tree area first of all with clean water. And into that now I'm going to add a tiny little watery mix of blue. Whatever blue you had, we used ultramarine blue so far, so we can still use that. So it's a very light mix of that just into my, this will be my darkish side. It's too strong. I just take it up. It will dry lighter, so we'll be okay. And on my other side then, I'm just putting a tiny little touch of yellow ochre. Again, just blend that in because it's a bit bright there. That'll give me a grey, greeny grey colour. Take it up along there. And now I'm going to mix that really dark colour that is on the scarring with ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And this will give me a very dark grey. And I'm going to drop a little bit of that into it on my dark side now. Now I'm going to do the same with the other two and continue then. Now I'm just going to finish my last one here. Again, working right into it. So now I put in my little bit of grey in and let this dry. So now I'm going to let that dry. To put the scarring on the tree, I'm going to use a little plastic card and I'm going to scratch in those marks. So to begin with, I'm just loading my brush with a little bit of that dark grey, made with ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I'm just pooling it on in areas here, and I'm just going to use my little card to scratch in some marks. So I'm going to continue up along, scratching in some marks where I think they are. This little area here would be quite dark, just here where the two limbs are meeting up. It's there. You can have great fun with this. Of course, you can overdo it as well, but it's very satisfying, and I like the marks it makes. Now we can come back again at that and darken down some of those later. Now our last one. You could practice this on a little piece of paper before you do it on the watercolour paper, if you wanted to, because it takes a little while to get used to the use of it. But it's a great little tool to have in your box. It can scratch out lots of little grasses when your washes are wet, so it's a really handy little thing to have in your art box, and maybe to have them in different sizes as well. Now we let those dry and we'll come back and we'll do the branches. Now that my bark is dried, I'm going to put in my little branches. Now again, I'm using the same colour that I've used for the scarring on the tree, so that was some ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna, and it makes up that dark grey, almost black, but it's the same colour I've used on the scarring. So these branches are going to be really fine, and so I'm going to start maybe here, just take it up. Maybe something coming down like this. And from the center as well, because they just don't grow on the sides, so just go on. Maybe one here. Just play with it. They're spider-like, so they're very fine. And give this one a little. So continue on until you feel you have enough in. Now I don't want to put too many in. Maybe a couple lower down. This one needs another one, so we'll give this one another little one in here. And then maybe a few lower down. I think that's enough. So now I'm just going to tap in some more little darker areas. I'm also going to put in some grasses around the base of my tree so it doesn't appear that they're floating in air. So I'm just dropping some paint here, just cool it. Now I could use my scraper to bring up little grasses here like this. As I said, it's a very handy little tool to have in your box. And some more here. Just dropping in some colour, pooling it in. I'm going to put in some other colours there as well now, maybe just a tiny touch of that green. Maybe pull that up as well. And maybe then I'll just spatter in a little bit of red into it, just the tiniest little spatter. To give it a little bit of texture and more autumn colour. Bit of that orange that we used already, and then just another little bit of green. And I think we'll call that finished. So this is our finished project using masking tape to preserve the white of the paper. I really hope you give this one a go, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.